Hello everyone. Today I wanted to share my journey to becoming an applied scientist at one of the FANG companies. Uh, so I wanted to start with my background, although it's not like relevant, but it can help, right? So I've been working at one of the FANG companies as an applied scientist for 5 plus years. So I was preparing for this role 5 years back, right? And things can change, expectations can change over time. But I will share my journey, how I got into one of these FANG companies, and I wanted to share that if you want to get into any of these, like the path should not be very different, and also even in the same company different teams have different expectations, uh, and there's no one way to get those skills, right? This was my way. Not everyone will have the same, right? So let's get started. So first thing is, what are these FANG companies? FANG companies are these five companies: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. And if you want to do a machine learning role, where you are doing a lot of experimentation, sometimes deployment of the models, you will be in one of these roles, right? You might be a research engineer, you might be a machine learning engineer, you might be a research scientist, applied scientist, machine learning scientist, right? And the different companies might actually, uh, I mean, there might be slight differences in these roles. For example, a research engineer or a machine learning engineer might be slightly more tilted towards uh, production systems or deployment. Plus, they also do experimentation. Uh, and maybe research scientists, applied scientists, machine learning scientists are slightly more tilted towards uh, solving machine learning problems. And there is an overlap between the two, right? It's not like scientists do this, engineers do this, right? So these are the roles which you can find in these companies. Uh, Another thing I wanted to talk about was, when you take the job, right, you have to discuss with the team or the hiring manager what is expected of the role, because uh, these data science roles are very confusing. Sometimes job descriptions are not very clear what you are expected to do on a daily level. So it makes sense that independent of what nomenclature you have, you should talk to your hiring manager what the expectations are from you, right? And what you might work in the near future. These things are important to be discussed because roles are not properly defined on the job listing page, or it might not be clear with the name of the role, right? For example, 10 years back, it might have happened that uh, anyone could have been called a data scientist, because a software engineer does something related to data science, a scientist also does something related to data science. You might be doing predictive modeling, you might be doing reporting, you might be building data pipelines, you might be running SQL queries. And if you're doing any of these things, I mean, it makes sense that you fall in the umbrella of data science, right? Few of the other roles which I'm not mentioned here because those are slightly different. At least now in 2021, things are more precisely defined. So, for example, I've not mentioned here a data scientist role. I've not mentioned here an economist role, right? I've not mentioned here a data analyst role. And these are also valid roles under data science, right? But today I will not talk about these roles. These are slightly different in terms of expectations. Uh, yeah, I mean, there are no ways. I mean, these are just different roles, right? I mean, for example, you have this spectrum of uh, three things, right? Let's make these three things, right? One is engineering. One is the science part, right? And the, basically, I'm separating science into two parts, and one is like purely analytics, right? Analytics part, and different proportions of these three things make up different roles, right? So let's say if you are slightly in this area, you might be like a research engineer, a machine learning engineer. If you are slightly on, uh, let's say, this side, you might be like a data scientist, right? Okay, maybe here, right? So the point is that different proportions of these things kind of set different kind of expectations, and you should make it clear. Now, another thing I want to talk about, like it kind of requires some dedication to get into these roles at these FANG companies. Uh, and for reference, I would compare with software engineer, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time to become a software engineer at this FANG, right? I mean, if you are in college or fresh out of college, you are expected that you know programming. You are expected, like a couple of languages like C++ or Java, right, or Python. You're expected that you know data structures and algorithms. You know, you're expected to know networking, operating systems, system design, how to design larger products, right? You are expected you understand abstractions, right? So to to really absorb these things, right, it takes time, sometimes years, right? So to become a software engineer at these companies, it takes years. And at least from dedication point of view, it's the same for an applied scientist. it it does take years, right? It takes years to build up the knowledge, to understand, to have an intuition, right? We'll talk about in a lot more detail what is expected out of an applied scientist. But at least from dedication point of view, it takes some time, and it's okay, it takes time, right? I mean, if you're having a career of 30-40 years, spending a couple of years is fine, right? And there are two parts to learning something, right? One is having the background knowledge of what you're doing. Another part is practice. At least in sciences part, these are two different things, and you cannot assume that just practicing will give you the knowledge or just knowledge will give you the practice. You need both of them, right? Let's go on. So some of the topics I will cover in this video uh, is like what are the subjects you need to know, and we'll go into each of these subjects and probably a couple of recommendations, my personal view of what I think is a good source for learning these. So what are subjects required, right? So the subjects required are like linear algebra, probability and statistics, optimization, machine learning, algorithms and data structures, and some research exposure is recommended, I would say, right? So I've written here machine learning, which is a generic machine learning, where I'm talking about like uh, you need to cover, you need to know the fundamentals of machine learning in that sense. And there are some specialized topics in machine learning which are still not like mainstream yet. There might be like specialized courses in certain topics in machine learning. I may or may not talk about it, but yeah, that's the thing. Optimization also, like most of the time in machine learning, continuous optimization is very popular. But we should not just limit ourselves to continuous optimization. Like having some knowledge about discrete optimization and intersection of continuous and discrete optimization is helpful. So these are the subjects which like gives you a foundation in machine learning, and that kind of foundation is what is expected out of uh, an applied scientist. So let's start, right? The first subject, linear algebra. So one of the books I wanted to recommend for this subject is written by Gilbert Strang. It's called Linear Algebra and Its Applications. And this professor, Gilbert Strang, also has uploaded his video lectures on YouTube. You can also find it on MIT OpenCourseware. Another interesting and a good resource for learning and having a good intuition of linear algebra is this playlist called Essence of Linear Algebra on YouTube. And I would recommend like you can like at least watch first 60% of these lectures, and then you can watch all of these. I mean, you can watch both of these lectures, and if you wanted to read a book, this is the book. It's a good book for introduction to linear algebra. Next topic, optimization. So I'm recommending these two video lectures. One is called CVX 101 by Stephen Boyd. It's available on YouTube. Uh, and these were first offered at edX, which is a website for a lot of MOOC courses, and it's also there in YouTube. And right now I think Stanford has removed this course from edX, but Stanford has an equivalent OpenCourseware for themselves. I don't remember the website's name, but yeah, I mean you can get this on YouTube. Another one is convex optimization, which is offered by CMU. Again, you can find this on YouTube. I think on Ryan Tipshirani's channel. Two of the books I wanted to recommend was one is Convex Optimization by Stephen Boyd, and one is Algorithms for Optimization by Wheeler. If you wanted to choose one of the books, so Stephen Boyd's book is basically it has a lot of fundamentals of optimization, like what are convex objects, but it covers very few optimization algorithms in depth. It has a lot of analysis of algorithms, the rate of convergence and all those things, right? So convex optimization covers fewer algorithms in depth, and also it has couple of fundamentals in optimization, like convex objects, different kind of convex objects, different kind of convex functions, and all those things, right? So I think first three chapters in this book, first three chapters you can look at, and if you wanted to choose just one book, you can choose second book, because it's more practical and applicable to a like larger audience. It has lots of algorithms which are many folds more than what is in Boyd. It also has pseudocode for each algorithm in Julia. Okay, it's not a pseudocode, it's in Julia. They have a Git repository or some repository of code for every algorithm, so you can actually try it out. So that's why I'm recommending the second book, Algorithms for Optimization by Wheeler. Okay, let's come to machine learning topic. So here, first I'm recommending reading resources. So you can see here that there are three books here. One is Pattern Recognition and Machine Learning by Christopher Bishop. Second one is Bayesian Reasoning and Machine Learning by David Barber. Machine Learning a Probabilistic Perspective by Kevin Murphy, right? And what I personally picked up when I was preparing was by Kevin Murphy. It's a dense book, I know, but I already had a decent background of machine learning. I had read these two these two resources. First one is the lecture notes, which are really good. I highly recommend you go to this link and read out all the lecture notes, because they are like just, I mean, it's a very large fonts. I don't remember the number of pages, but let's say around 150 pages or something, and it's a very large font, like. So I would highly recommend you read these lecture notes in this first link. And what is this? This is basically a machine learning course taught at Stanford with course ID CH229. These lecture notes, the first link, is the version when Andrew Ng taught it in the classroom. These are classroom recorded videos, around 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes each. This second link is basically the same course with the latest syllabus. There might be some changes of some topics, and you might find a couple of new topics or new slides here. So these two are like a really good resource if you want to quickly read something. In the books, you could choose any one of these. You cannot go wrong with any of these, at least for fundamentals. Kevin Murphy is a thicker book with more topics, but it is also dense. Everything in Christopher Bishop you can find in Murphy's book with few more topics, and sometimes in a lot more detail. There's just like 2 chapters on variational inference in this book. There's a chapter on non-parametric methods, which would cover something like a stick breaking process or a Chinese buffet process, right? And these are like clustering methods, non-parametric clustering methods, which assume, I mean, I don't want to go into the like contents of each of the book, but the third book has a lot more topics, and I personally picked this one when I was preparing. You'll read it very slowly because it's a very dense book. I won't say that these two are also not dense, but it's much easier to read these two books. There's also like this is the first edition, so there might be some typos, not a lot, but and notations might not be consistent across. Like there might be like new notations in some chapters and all. Anyways, the point is that it might take like a couple of more editions for this to be polished. But yeah, I mean, I loved this book. I think reading this book is one of the major contributors. I was able to very easily crack the machine learning rounds here at one of these FANG companies, right? So, I mean, I highly recommend reading one of these books. Another book is Elements of Statistical Learning. Learning, short for ESL, by Hastie, et al., few more authors. This is also a good book. I mean, I personally would choose one of these three, but this is also a good book. One of the things mentioned in this book, which is not in these three books, is the topic boosting or gradient boosted trees, and it's really nicely explained here how to do boosting with regression trees for any differentiable loss function. I highly recommend reading at least that chapter. One more thing I wanted to mention, which is not in any of the books, it's just a topic. It's a very popular library. Read the research paper for XGBoost. It's a very nice paper to learn trees, and it's such a popular tool or a library in Python, and I think we have interfaces for other languages as well. But yeah, I mean, XGBoost is a very popular library which is used in practice. So reading this research paper is a good idea. Okay, so couple of video lectures I mean, you have a lot of content out there. I wanted to choose something which doesn't compromise on the rigorousness and is also approachable to someone who is dedicated, right? So the first one is the machine learning video series on YouTube on a channel called Mathematical Monk. These are like excellent videos on machine learning, I would say. I mean, mostly it's probabilistic in nature, but I guess that's fine. This kind of covers all the fundamentals you need, which you might learn from the books mentioned, at least the first three books mentioned. The second one I wanted to cover is more applied and more specialized. It's called Mining Massive Datasets by Stanford. Again, you can find all the videos on YouTube on some playlist. Why I'm recommending this course is like this course is more related to information retrieval, and the algorithms used in information retrieval are not always taught in a proper machine learning course. It might be taught on some specialized course, right? For example, Google uses an algorithm called PageRank. PageRank. And in general, ranking is a topic which is not always taught in a machine learning course. So you get the idea, right? I mean, mining massive datasets will give you a couple of topics which will never be taught in a machine learning course. Maybe it will be, but usually it's not taught in a proper machine learning course. So these two are like complementary course. So topics don't overlap. That's what you want. Okay. One of the important things to become an applied scientist is you need to have a decent programming exposure, something closer to like an entry level software engineer. It might be slightly relaxed on this if you are very strong in other things. So it's a gray area that how strong you have to be in data structures and algorithms. But from preparation point of view, you have to think that you are giving a software engineering interview. There will be no system design interviews usually, but then again depends on the role you're interviewing for. A research engineer role can have that. There could be like a machine learning design round as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So the books here I'm covering. If you don't have a lot of time and you have spent a lot of couple of years with machine learning outside of practice, and let's say I don't know, I mean, couple of thousand hours of studying these things, right? So then maybe and interviews are very near. Then maybe you just want to focus on interviews. The first two books are focused on interviews. Elements of programming interviews in Python by Adnan Aziz. Data structures and algorithmic thinking in Python by Naseema Karumanchi. And I've chosen this in Python thing because I'm more comfortable with Python, and a lot of these roles are kind of flexible in terms of what languages you need to know. Python is a very popular language for experimentation in predictive modeling. And then there are these three very popular textbooks used across many universities. The first one is Algorithms by Sedgwick and Bain. The second one is Algorithms Illuminated by Tim Ravgarden, and Introduction to Algorithms by Charles. I mean, I don't remember all of these names, but each alphabet is for one of the authors. CLRS is the short for that. So I personally have read like some parts of this, some parts of this, some parts of this. So it's not like I've read everything, every book. But when I was preparing for it, Tim Ravgarden from Stanford has these video lectures on Coursera, Coursera.org. Right? So I think it's ORG. Anyways, the Coursera is again a MOOC platform where there's a lot of courses there. So he has this algorithm specialization. Again, in Coursera, you can actually audit a course for free if you don't choose the specialization and you go to each of these individual courses and then audit it. So at least you can watch all these videos for free. But yeah, I mean, it charges you some amount if you want your assignments evaluated, if you want like every part of the course available, right? But yeah, I mean, and again, Introduction to Algorithms, again MIT. So one of the authors of this book is at MIT, and again they have they choose this as a textbook, and they have video lectures on YouTube. I think yeah, I mean, all three books have the authors of all three books. You can find the video lectures on YouTube or author's website. But if you don't have time, you can just focus on the first two books, which focuses on interview. I personally was using the second one, and both of them are good. And then again, there are other websites like Geeks for Geeks and Lead Code, where you can go read about the kind of interview questions you get in algorithms and data structure interviews. And Lead Code is like a website where you can go and practice programming in a time limit. Okay, so another important aspect is having some research exposure. Like if you, so once you have like properly built your fundamentals, you can go for a research internship. So you can go to one of the professors in your country, one of the good professors in your country, or one of the good research labs in your country, and then you can do an internship. And to get like good value out of the internship, research internship, I would recommend 6+ months of internship. I personally did 8 months internship, and that is when I learned that I don't know anything. Then after the 8 months, I converted to a part-time student in the same lab. Then 6 months later, I converted to a full-time student in the same university, and that was how my journey was for my MS in computer science. Although all my courses were electives, I only took machine learning and optimization and linear algebra kind of courses, and most of my time I spent there, which was like around 3.5-4 years. I was doing some kind of research or some kind of reading research papers, or involved in discussions and study groups, reading groups at the lab, right? So, I digressed, but that was how I was doing it. Uh, Again, you can like also during an internship try to publish a research paper in a respected conference. Uh, so there's a lot of top tier conferences like ICML, NeurIPS, IC, CV, CVPR, AAAI, NACL, ACL. I mean, you have many more. But yeah, I mean, these are like mostly the top recognized conferences. If you are able to publish in this, like that's a excellent start. I mean, even without it, you might be fine. But if you have one of these, like it will make it much easier to get interviews, to get a job as well. And okay, I mean, if you have not done the first two things, I mean, if you don't have a good paper, or you don't have any research internship, I would say that you should have like a small portfolio of some specialized project of substantial complexity. Uh, and by substantial complexity, it should not be like you fed data set into a library. You got a model and you finish a project in a week or 2 weeks. It should be a difficult problem to tackle. It should not be like uh, you can solve it very quickly, right? I mean, one of the examples might be like you are handling Wikipedia, and maybe solving for some natural language processing task based on this large Wikipedia dataset. Um, yeah. Um, there are another thing you can do is like a internship in industry. I mean, it might be difficult always. I mean, for at least for a master's, it's kind of not easy to get a research internship in industry. Nowadays, it's much easier. But when I like 5-6 years back, I was finding it difficult. Uh, but yeah, so if you are doing research internship, then there are like certain topics which you can only do in industry, where there are users which interact with the system, and what kind of, as an example, let's say if you're recommending something to a user, or user is searching something and you show something to the user, right? So how the user reacts is a function of what you show him, right? And there's this uh, partially observed data here, right? So there are other kinds of algorithms which is useful here. There's a space called counterfactual machine learning, um, or causal inference. This is kind of a recent research area. Causal inference you can do without system as well, from some data sets and all. But yeah, I mean, the point is that like a couple of topics which it's difficult to do on your own, having a data set. But yeah, I mean, there are some data sets available publicly for the recommendation system. You can try those. Yeah. So few of the other topics which you might work on might be like natural language processing, computer vision, you can just work on machine learning algorithms, new architectures in deep learning. Okay, deep learning is a hot area of research. Robotics is another area. Nowadays, reinforcement learning with robotics is something people do. Data efficient aspects of machine learning. What else? Yeah, I mean, ranking is something which is a good topic. And also like at a application level also, like if you're working on a search problem, like how to design a search algorithm, as in let's say Google search, right? How to make a recommendation system, and you can obviously like build a basic recommendation system, but there are also it's an active area of research. You can read a research paper and try to implement that research paper in this useful space. Advertising, it's a complex business, lot of components to it. You can work on some of the components. Advertising, and nowadays even healthcare is something which people do care about a lot in research community as well as in industry. Yeah, so there can be a lot of options. Obviously you can choose ML intersection any problem statement, right? So yeah, you can spend your time, but yeah, spending some time with a professor in a good research lab, or yeah, so that would be like really a good exposure to understand what is research and the challenges of research, right? So one of the things I wanted to maybe share is in research you have to solve problems, and also at least in academic research, and also simultaneously being novel about it, like no one has done this before. But in industry it's okay to solve the problem with the latest research and see if that problem can be solved for your data, because real data can be slightly more difficult to solve in comparison to data sets used in academia. But recently even in academia there are real data sets, the more realistic data sets used. A few other things I also wanted to mention, although this is actually not needed, good to have, but knowing one of the like mature languages is useful. Python, just knowing Python is also most of the time good enough, but knowing something from like C++, basically like a faster language, right? Like C++ or Java, a compiled language. Python is an interpreted language. There's something called Spark, which does data processing and machine learning training in a distributed system. For example, in a Hadoop cluster, you can do a distributed data processing and all those things in Spark. It makes it very easy to process data at scale. Having some practice with popular machine learning libraries like PyTorch, TensorFlow, MXNet, Scikit, Pandas, etc. Right? There are many you could be exposed based on what problems you are working on, but these are few of the very popular ones, right? Knowing SQL is something not very important, but like almost everyone knows at least some aspects of it. Most of the time you'll use SQL for querying and getting the data from a database. Again, SQL is usually not required for an applied scientist role because you are so good in programming and data structures that it is usually assumed that you can do a query. But in some of the companies, they might actually have a SQL kind of an interview round. But at least at one of these banks, I don't think there's a SQL round. And some cloud computing infrastructure awareness is usually helpful. So Amazon Web Services is one of the popular and the largest cloud service or cloud products provider. And knowing some of the basics of it, like what is an EC2 instance, which is basically a compute product. S3 is a storage product. EMR is a distributed Hadoop cluster kind of a infrastructure where you can do distributed computing, like let's say in Spark or some Hadoop frameworks. SageMaker is another product where you can train models, deploy models, serve models, and things like that, right? So knowing a bit of few of the popular products for AWS is not needed, but useful, right, in your job. Okay, so these are like few of the books I love. I've not read all of these cover to cover, but this one I've read cover to cover, this one I've read cover to cover, this one I've read a lot, this one I've read a lot, not cover to cover. and any of the topics which are not available or at other places, then I would go to like this book, let's say, right? For example, boosting is something which is really well explained in this book, and it might not be that well explained in let's say this book, right? uh, Data science on AWS is another book which is very practical book. Let's say you know all the machine learning and all, but how to create like an end-to-end pipeline, how to serve a model in production, those kind of aspects is covered in this book. uh, One of the newer topics I'm really excited about is causal inference, and I picked up this book because I kind of liked the structure of the table of contents. So I mean, I really wanted to get into causal inference and recommendation system intersection causal inference. You can have some deep learning intersection causal inference. So basically, you can do those kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the point is that this is a new book. I'm excited to learn about a new topic, causal inference. But yeah, I mean, this is a very specialized book. You may ignore this one, but you don't need to like read every book cover to cover, and these might not be the only book you will ever read. It's a career where you have to keep learning either from research paper or from books to solve the problems in a better way. But yeah, I mean, causal inference is an exciting direction. It has a lot of scope. It can help in generalization in a better way. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's it. I feel, yeah. I mean, I'm at the end of this video. I hope this was helpful to you. In terms of how did I prepare? I started, I think, around in 2011 when I started seriously studying machine learning. The first course I did was something which is offered by Coursera right now, which is like a very simple course for a beginner. That's where I started. At that time, Coursera didn't exist, but Andrew Ng had this website for this ML course. It was the first offering of the course. I did the course, I did the assignment. I was really excited because I was able to do things which was not possible with the normal programming paradigm, how we are used to, like sorting and all those things, which we were learning, the algorithms which we learned in algo and data structure books, right? There was a lot of things which I couldn't do with those algorithms. So this was like a totally new class of algorithms which enabled me to do things by learning from data. I was really excited about this topic. I learned, I was continuously learning something about it or practicing the learned algorithms on some data for like 8 months to a year. Then my college ended, my bachelor's ended. Then I joined my first job. And still I was trying to learn machine learning. My background is ECE, electronics and communication. But I joined a job which was a software engineering job. But I wanted to really learn machine learning, but I was not able to find time, dedication, or like I wanted some dedicated time to learn and practice. I was not satisfied with what I knew. So what I did was I left my job after 3 months. I went for an unpaid internship to one of the good professors in the country. I spent there some time. I understood that I don't know so much. I spent some more time, but then after like around 2 years, I really knew what I don't know. And I was continuously learning new and new stuff. I also watched some machine learning summer school videos where it really opened my eyes to so many topics I didn't know, and even after watching them, I didn't know. So I went back to the basics. So till I watched the summer school machine learning summer school video, all of them. Till that time, I have never read a machine learning book, a proper machine learning book. But after that summer school, I knew that okay, I don't have my basics. I can't even understand everything after watching these tutorials because they're really fast-paced tutorials. So I went back to the fundamentals. I read linear algebra, I read optimization books, I read machine learning books, and simultaneously I was doing some research and practicing it as well. But the main idea was it was an iterative process of understanding, so that I don't know anything or there's so much to learn. So that was my journey. In terms of tools, I never really focused on tools. I picked up the tools when required for the project. Even on the job, I pick up the tools which I need to learn. Not everyone knows everything, and that will always be true. So it's okay not to know everything, but the journey should be like we should be always learning, practicing, and things like that. Right? Okay, I mean, I'm done with this video. I hope you find this helpful.